The satisfying click of handcuffs echoed through our quiet suburban street as Sandra Mitchell, our self-appointed neighborhood dictator, was escorted to the police cruiser in her designer tracksuit and full makeup at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. "This is a mistake," she shrieked, her perfectly coiffed hair finally showing cracks in the armor. "I'm the HOA president. I was protecting property values." Officer Martinez wasn't having it. "Ma'am, you're being arrested for assault on a minor and harassment. You have the right to remain silent." The irony wasn't lost on me. Sandra had spent months trying to silence my 12-year-old son Tommy, and now she was the one being told to zip it. But let me back up. This story really begins 6 months ago, when we moved into Willowbrook Estates, a cookie-cutter paradise where the grass is always greener, because it's literally required by HOA covenant to be Kentucky bluegrass, trimmed to exactly 2.5 inches. Tommy has autism. He's brilliant, kind, and happens to find comfort in routines that don't always align with suburban social norms. His favorite routine: walking our golden retriever, Buddy, along the same path every morning at 6:30 a.m. sharp, talking to himself about dinosaurs. Enter Sandra Mitchell, 5 foot nothing of concentrated entitlement, wrapped in Lululemon and armed with a laminated copy of the HOA handbook. She lived in the corner house with the aggressive seasonal decorations and a Ring doorbell that she monitored like it was NORAD. The first incident happened on a Tuesday. Tommy was having his usual animated conversation with Buddy about velociraptors when Sandra materialized from her front door like a suburban genie summoned by the sound of joy. "Excuse me, young man," she barked, clipboard already in hand. "The noise ordinance clearly states that excessive noise before 7 a.m. is prohibited." I watched from our kitchen window as my son stopped mid-sentence, his routine disrupted. Tommy doesn't handle confrontation well. He shut down completely, standing, frozen on the sidewalk. "I'm talking to you." Sandra stepped closer, waving her clipboard like a weapon. That's when I intervened. "Is there a problem here?" Sandra's smile could have curdled milk. "Your son is disturbing the peace. This is a family neighborhood, and we have standards." He's 12, walking his dog, and speaking at normal volume on a public sidewalk. The HOA handbook clearly states the HOA handbook doesn't supersede basic human decency. I kept my voice level, though my blood was boiling. "He's not breaking any actual laws." Sandra's eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that." And thus began the War of Willowbrook Estates. Over the next month, Sandra escalated her campaign with the precision of a military operation. Noise complaints to the city dismissed. Calls to animal control about Buddy being aggressive, laughable buddies afraid of butterflies. Formal HOA violations for Tommy's loitering walking. Public disturbance existing. And my personal favorite: failure to maintain community standards, being autistic. Apparently closing parenthesis. Each complaint was meticulously documented, photographed, and submitted with the theatrical flair of someone who'd found her calling as a suburban tyrant. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday morning. Tommy had been having a rough week. Changes in routine are hard for him, and Sandra's constant harassment had made his morning walk stressful. But he was trying so hard to be brave. I watched from the window as he stepped outside with Buddy, took a deep breath, and started his usual path. Right on cue, Sandra emerged from her house like a spider sensing vibrations in her web. But this time was different. This time, she was recording. "There he is again," she announced to her phone camera. "The disruptive child who's ruining our peaceful neighborhood." Tommy froze. His shoulders started shaking, not from cold, but from overstimulation. He began his self-soothing behavior, quietly humming and rocking slightly. "Look at this behavior." Sandra stepped closer, shoving her phone toward my son. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. Completely inappropriate." That's when Tommy had a meltdown. Not a tantrum, a genuine neurological response to overwhelming stress. He started crying, his humming got louder, and he began flapping his hands to self-regulate. Sandra's reaction was breathtaking in its cruelty. Stop that weird behavior right now. You're scaring the neighbors. She grabbed Tommy's arm. My son screamed. I was already sprinting toward the door, but our neighbor Mrs. Chen was closer. Get your hands off that child, she shouted. Sandra whirled around, still gripping Tommy's arm. Mind your own business. This kid needs discipline. He's having a medical episode. You monster. Mrs. Chen was recording now too. Let go of him. By the time I reached them, Tommy was in full meltdown mode. Sandra was screaming about property values, and Mrs. Chen was on the phone with 911. Get away from my son. I carefully extracted Tommy from Sandra's grip, wrapping him in a protective hug as he sobbed against my chest. Your son is a menace. Sandra was practically foaming at the mouth. I'm calling the police. Already done, Mrs. Chen said grimly, holding up her phone. I've got everything on video. The police arrived within minutes. Officer Martinez took statements while Tommy gradually calmed down in our living room. Wrapped in his weighted blanket, with Buddy's head on his lap. Sandra was still outside, pacing and ranting about her rights as HOA president and how she was the victim here. She'd worked herself into such a frenzy that she barely noticed the officer taking notes. Mum, you physically grabbed a child who was having a medical episode, Officer Martinez said calmly. I was trying to stop his disruptive behavior. It's my job as HOA president. The HOA doesn't give you authority to put hands on someone else's child. Sandra's face went white. But I was protecting the neighborhood. That's when I played my trump card. See, I'd been busy during Sandra's months-long harassment campaign. While she was filing complaints and making my son's life miserable, I'd been doing research. Officer, I'd like to file a complaint as well, I said, pulling out my phone. I have 6 months of documented harassment, including recordings of Mrs. Mitchell using disability slurs and making threats. Sandra's mouth fell open. You were recording me. Ring doorbells aren't the only cameras in this neighborhood. I scrolled through my evidence. I also have testimonies from 7 neighbors about your harassment campaign. And I paused for dramatic effect, a copy of the HOA bylaws that Mrs. Mitchell apparently never read. I handed Officer Martinez a printed document. According to Section 12.3 of the HOA Charter, any board member who uses their position to harass or discriminate against residents based on disability can be immediately removed from office and banned from future HOA participation. Sandra snatched the paper from the officer's hands. As she read, her face went from white to green to a fascinating shade of purple. This also means, I continued, that every violation she's issued against us is null and void, and the fines she's been threatening, illegal under both HOA rules and federal disability law. Officer Martinez looked impressed. You've been busy. I believe in being thorough. I smiled at Sandra's increasingly panicked expression. Oh, and Sandra, remember that anonymous complaint you filed with Child Services about my parenting? The one you bragged about to Mrs. Henderson. That's also in my evidence file. Sandra's world crumbled in real time. You can't prove voice recordings? Sandra, your Ring doorbell in the only device that saves audio. The rest happened quickly. Sandra was arrested for assault on a minor and harassment. The HOA emergency meeting the next evening was standing room only, and her removal from office was unanimous. But here's the beautiful part. The new HOA board, horrified by Sandra's behavior, voted to implement a comprehensive anti-harassment policy and designated our street as a sensory-friendly zone with special protections for neurodivergent residents. Tommy's morning walks are peaceful now. He still talks to Buddy about dinosaurs, but his shoulders don't tense up when we pass Sandra's house. She moved out 2 months ago, citing neighborhood hostility, which was rich, considering she'd single-handedly created all of it. The for sale sign in front of her house has become Tommy's favorite landmark. Every morning, he stops, points at it, and says, "That's where the mean lady used to live, but she can't hurt kids anymore." Sometimes the best revenge is getting even, it's getting justice. And sometimes, just sometimes, the system actually works when you know how to use it. Sandra learned that the hard way. Some people need to learn that autism isn't a character flaw, harassment isn't a hobby, and HOA president isn't a license to be cruel. The arrest video went viral in our local Facebook groups. Sandra's mugshot became a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked authority and small-minded prejudice, and Tommy, he's thriving. His confidence has returned. His morning routine is sacred again, and he's made friends with half the neighborhood who've stopped by to apologize for not standing up to Sandra sooner. The sweetest victory came last week when Tommy, unprompted, told me, "Mom, I'm glad the mean lady left. Now I can be myself again." Mission accomplished. Sandra, hope the handcuffs were worth it.